What's up, everybody? Happy Minamino signing day. My name. Whatever. We'll try and do this intro again. I'm Craig. You motherfuckers are very welcome along to tonight's stream. You know when I've got my cans on that I've got a guest. You can see her on the image in the jacket. Cash Boyle, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good, Craig. Thank you. I'm feeling good. We've had a very interesting, albeit good week as a club. Nice new signing to top it off, and yeah, the club just feels in an excellent place. So, by proxy, I am also in a very good place.
Well, a happy Minamino day to you.
I mean, that's going to become tradition now. The What date is it today? The 19th of December shall hereby be known as Minamino Day.
Well, I mean, we'll get stuck into it and we'll see how people in the chat are feeling about it as well. From what I can gather, it's a 4.5 year deal, so he's got the same length of contract as Jurgen Norbert Klopp.
I mean, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I'm guessing it probably isn't. Nothing at Liverpool feels like a coincidence. It all feels very like every single move is by design. And what I would say is that the signing is just like it's just superb in terms of like the money, in terms of the money you pay, in terms of like the fact that a lot of people for the rumored release clause that we've paid would say, oh well, even if it's a flop, it's like almost like a free hit in Premier League terms because of the amount of money swirling around. But actually, with this particular player, we've had two opportunities to see him against us, and on both occasions, fans and obviously Jurgen Klopp as well have been like, well, actually, this player could really fit into our system. So it's like it's not a gamble; it's just a really cheap acquisition that should probably end up paying real dividends. And it just shows how shrewd the recruitment team are at the club. Michael Edwards needs like a statue. And to put it into context, Minamino has cost less than we sold Kevin Stewart for when you consider it like in that kind of like from that perspective. And it's for me, I love a signing like that. I love when the club has the money but doesn't spend it foolishly. And I think it's another really progressive step for us.
It certainly is. I'm looking at the chat and there's a lot of konnichiwa in the chat. How are we, ladies and gents? I love that you're buying into this already. Well in. As Cash said, £7.25 million was his release clause from Salzburg. I heard Raphael Honigstein talking about this, and he was saying that it's almost like a free transfer in Premier League terms because you don't get anybody for less than 10 million quid these days, particularly in the Premier League. So for us to have known about that release clause, Cash, because I'm not sure if you had read there was a couple of articles floating around that United were interested in him at one point, but they weren't aware of his release clause.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw an article today, saying that other interested parties were a little bit unhappy that not only had Liverpool managed to find out the release clause, they'd managed to obviously activate it before any other information even came out. And I suppose, if the shoe were on the other foot and we lost, in inverted commas, lost a player because we didn't have the inside information and another club did, we might be a little bit annoyed. But the reality is we played them twice this season, and very clearly, that wasn't the start of the quest. Apparently, obviously, they've been scouting him for years and years. But obviously, that we were able to get that real intimate kind of like contact with them almost, and put the finishing touches on it because we all know, the day after the game in Salzburg, the rumor mill, which then became very quickly a confirmed thing. We all know that doesn't happen just all of a sudden. That is obviously something that was in the works for weeks and months, and then after we'd fulfilled that fixture, they felt like it was okay to almost release the information. So for me, I guess it would be a little bit annoying if you were an otherwise interested club, but the reality is, even if it came down to Man United versus Liverpool, the player will choose Liverpool now in any situation because we're so much further ahead than they are. And then also, the other thing that I thought was notable is like, what are Salzburg doing? Like the player is very, very good. Why is this release clause so low? Obviously, from our perspective, it's really, really good. But I just think from a business perspective, it's quite bad.
I think they got him for about £1 million, in and around £1 million, if my memory's correct. So I suppose if you look at it that way, they've turned a profit. But then again, I don't know. You are right. It is a very, very low release clause, and I'm not going to argue about it. I'm sure you're pretty tickety boo about it as well. And you got to give props to Jurgen Klopp, to Michael Edwards. And there's one major difference in our transfer business, apart from it being quiet, which is great. And too much stuff was leaked under Brendan Rodgers, but we don't fuck about these days. We scout players, as you said, for a very long time. I'd heard that the guys at Melwood, the players were so impressed, and they were talking about Minamino on the training ground, and then they suddenly heard that, oh, this guy, oh yeah, no, we're signing him.
Well, that's it. And I think there was a bit of a wry smile from like Jurgen and the coaching staff, being like, the players are lauding this sort of lad from the Salzburg team, sorry, unbeknownst to them, he's coming in the door very, very soon. And, I love that. There's a real element of like discretion about the way we do things now that was really missing under Brendan Rodgers, because obviously Brendan Rodgers was sort of his own theatre and his own show, and there was whereas Jurgen Klopp, I think, totally distanced himself from that whole element. So for me, it's a really nice way of doing business, and it's borne fruit once again.
I think Kevin Bickford is right. I'm just going to address a few things in the chat because there's a few comments coming in that I just want to get through. Somebody said you're a bit worried about Gini and Fabinho. Gini's going to sign a new deal in the coming weeks. He's in negotiations with the club, so I wouldn't be worried about Gini Wijnaldum. He's going nowhere. Oh. Then somebody else said replacing Lallana, and this is the interesting one for me. Kevin Bickford said coming in to replace Lallana, and I actually believe that could be the case, Cash. I think Lallana might be heading off the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean that seems right in the sense that, like, if you look at players whose deals are like coming to their conclusion, or who are quite sort of quite near to that, obviously James Milner signed a new deal. Gini Wijnaldum will sign a new deal. That's pretty much going to be done and dusted. And then the other player in that kind of category is Adam Lallana. And by inference, the fact that the club are neither negotiating with him or nothing's being signed, that means that they're going to do like the Albert Moreno, Daniel Sturridge thing, where it's like known that they're going to be leaving, but they remain a part of the squad for the rest of the season. And Lallana's a very good professional, and I think the Lallana of the 2016-17 season particularly was excellent. But there's two things. I think firstly, as the quality of the club has progressed during Jurgen Klopp's reign, coupled with the fact that he's had a lot of injuries, he's now over 30. I just feel like Adam Lallana is no longer in his pomp, and arguably he no longer really meets the consistent level required for a team of our quality now. But he still has been a good player for us and deserves respect.
Absolutely. Rochelle said Klopp will not last till 2024. I beg to differ, mate. There's a reason that Jurgen Klopp signed the contract extensions, because he knows his job here isn't finished. He knows there's still development to come, and he's going to look like after the next generation of player after this one, and he will leave the club as he promised. Cash, when he came in, I'll never forget him uttering the words, "I want to leave this club in a better position than when I arrived," and there's no doubt that he's going to do that, and I think he will see out his contract.
Yeah, he's one of those people, like one of those rare sort of people in football that I actually think the contract and the length of it and sort of the clauses therein in terms of like staying and in terms of all of that, I think for him it is worth the paper it's written on. It's not just like a lip service thing. I genuinely think with him, he wants to, because at the end of the day, he's got a contract to 2022 in any case. So what is the benefit of him signing an extension if not to see it through? What it did at the time that it was released was that it really sent out a strong signifier that, like you said, this project isn't over yet. It probably won't be over it won't be completed by 2022. I'm exceptionally happy here. I have all the infrastructure I need to go into. Well, he'd be in charge for 9 years if he stays to the end of 2024, which I believe he will as well. So he's making a commitment to the club, and I genuinely think that he intends to fulfill that. He's a man of integrity. He has everything he could need and want at Liverpool Football Club. There's no doubt about it. It's been made to suit him, and not in the way of like he's just given everything he wants, because I don't think that's the way he likes to manage. But I think the club atmosphere has been, and the culture has been made to suit him. And why would he want to go anywhere else? But I think he's shown that with this commitment, and what it says as well, I think, to the rest of the league in Europe and so on, is that Liverpool won a Champions League last year, hopefully win the title this year. 2024, that's 5 years from now. You could be entering, fingers crossed, a period of Liverpool dominance, and dominance can only happen with total security around the personnel at the club, mainly the manager.
I agree. There's so many things I want to get through. I want to touch on Kai Havertz. I want to touch on Sancho. I want to touch on something else that happened during the week, Cash. I want to get your thoughts on this. Coincidence or not coincidence that Steven Gerrard's contract has also been renewed for the same length of time?
Well, that made me laugh because, people on Twitter are just absolute vultures for the information. I admire people who just put all these things together. It's hard to say. I can see why Liverpool and why Steven Gerrard would try and orchestrate the lengths of time. But whether Rangers would sign off on it, I'm not sure. But I think for me, it's hard to say because I think Steven Gerrard obviously is doing a brilliant job at Rangers. He's a Liverpool agent, the best, if not one of the best player to ever play for us. And you would love to see Jurgen Klopp's door close and Steven Gerrard's door open. That would be a lovely bit of like symmetry, like in the sense of like you have, you know, that would be two brilliant phases of our club back to back. Whether it definitely will happen that way, it's hard to say, but you would have to look at it and say that it will be perfect. And if they are planning it that way and it executes that way and the club are in a strong position for him to come in, then I personally as a fan would love that. And there's no other real natural heir that I can think of.
Pep Linders is the only other one I could think of. If we were looking to promote from within and somebody who's thought of very highly, there's a couple of things I want to put to people and a couple of bits of information I want to put out, and I want to get the chat's thoughts on this. So this is just my own personal view that I'm going to come out with now, but I want to start off with Jan Åge Fjørtoft, who I think we spoke about before, Cash, when we were on the stream. He was talking about Liverpool's interest in Jadon Sancho. Today he came out again and he said that Dortmund aren't letting him go anywhere in January. It's been made very, very clear that there's no move happening for Jadon Sancho in January. He believes Liverpool are still interested, but that interest may have cooled with the figure of £122 million or something like that Borussia Dortmund want from. And then Bild have apparently come out and said that Liverpool have concrete interest in Kai Havertz. Now, that would again probably be a move for the end of the season. But I have my own little theory on this one. We spoke about Adam Lallana moving on, and that looks like an almost certainty. I also think Shaqiri's going to move on at the end of the season. I think we'll bring in Minamino, which we've already done, and then we'll bring in AN other, whether that's Kai Havertz, whether that's Jadon Sancho. But there will be a hashtag 2020 Nike induced signing, shall we say, I believe.
Yeah, of course. I think particularly if Liverpool win more than one trophy this season, there's a real sense of they will go for that marquee signing. I mean, what I would say is I don't believe at this moment in time Jadon Sancho is worth £106 million or euros or whatever. It's like he is phenomenal. He's clearly excellent. He's not even 20 years old yet, though. And what to make him your record signing by some distance, that is a ridiculous display of faith by the club, which I don't think that he doesn't deserve. But I believe a move of that price tag wouldn't necessarily suit the club for like a player who by that point will only be 20 years old. That's just my opinion, but he's a phenomenal player. I think actually Kai Havertz would be a player that would probably suit our need more. But I guess it depends on what, the club wants from, their summer signing. It depends on, I guess, what we need. But for me, I just don't see the club necessarily signing off on a move of that money for that player. And to be fair, Borussia Dortmund can rightly command that kind of money because they have pushed his career and they've given him the platform to become as valuable as he is. And also, they're in a good financial position where they'll not need to sell. And when they do sell, it can be at the price that they set. And on top of that,
I think they're using Ousmane Dembele as a kind of guide to how much they want.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair enough because you look at Ousmane Dembele since he's gone to Barcelona, he's been inconsistent at best. With injuries playing a role as well. But actually, Borussia Dortmund got like a ridiculous amount of money for him. It was £80 million plus over €100 million, and you'd argue that Jadon Sancho is showing as much, if not more, potential at this sort of approximately the same age bracket. But what I would say from a Liverpool perspective is that I just don't see the club signing off on that amount of money for a player who is excellent, but many would argue he's not like in the top 5 in the world at the moment. He's still got a lot to progress on, and he's still very, very young. So whether that's a deterrent or not, I'm not sure. But what I would say as well is that whatever does happen, Jurgen Klopp has a fantastic relationship with Borussia Dortmund, and that would obviously be respected in the process of any kind of deal as well.
Absolutely. There's a couple of bits of information with regards to potential outgoings from the club as well in the January window. It seems that Steven Gerrard is interested in taking Herbie Kane up to Rangers on loan. I think it's on loan anyway. That's what I read earlier on. And also, Cash, I want to get your thoughts on the possibility of Ryan Brewster and Curtis Jones maybe going out on loan in January. And of course the chat as well. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on it.
I mean, I think for me, Herbie Kane would need to go out now, but it would probably need to be a permanent deal. like on the basis that he was at Doncaster last year, was actually like excellent, like on loan with them. And I think he's probably above League One level. He's probably a Championship level player, maybe like lower level Premier League. But I don't think that anybody, including like anyone in the chat or you, could really say he's realistically got a chance of breaking into the first team. So that would be my thought on that. In terms of players going out on loan, I think Ryan Brewster definitely needs to. I think he definitely needs to. I mean, he was like obviously the top scorer at the England Under-17 World Cup, and was excellent. Clearly, is a brilliant goal scorer at youth level. There was a lot of furore around: is he going to sign a deal? Jurgen Klopp made a big play for him to sign the deal, which was the right thing to do. But now we're in a position where he's not getting into the first team ahead of the current front three. He is still very young, but he doesn't. He really does need to be playing football in the sense of like it's kind of like the Phil Foden experiment, where you've got this excellent sort of prodigious talent on your hands, and you do like okay, you want to keep them in an elite environment, learning from the best managers and players like at Man City or Liverpool. But by the same token, are you stifling their development by not letting them play enough games? So I think a loan for me to a lower Premier League side, like Crystal Palace, actually I think would be perfect. A club like that, maybe even like maybe Villa, a club of sort of that kind of ilk would be.
Swansea was I know the Championship, but Swansea was a club that I'd seen strongly linked with Ryan Brewster, and of course Crystal Palace. And we even had Roy Hodgson come out and speak about the possibility of Ryan Brewster, or how much game time Ryan Brewster may or may not get if he went to Palace. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that they sort of like did that, the Roy Hodgson thing, like, oh well, like sort of like answer and non-answer thing. But he was very complimentary of him, wasn't he? And for me, I think that's a loan move that would make a lot of sense. I mean, it's clear that he has a future at the club. It's clear that Roberto Firmino is not going to be there forever. And although obviously he's only like 28, I think. So, I think in my opinion, that would make a lot of sense. And I wouldn't see it as like a damning indictment on like he's got no future at the club. I think he does very much so. But, a loan for his development wouldn't be hurtful. And, sort of, I would say similarly for Curtis Jones, but maybe his need to go out on loan isn't quite as strong.
He's a baller. That dude he's one hell of a footballer.
Yeah, he's so good. And I think he's one of those players that like, he maybe a loan would be good, but I don't think for him, I don't know, it doesn't feel as urgent for some reason. But then I look at our midfield options and I think, where is he getting in that midfield? So, yeah, but I'm not sure. I feel for me, Brewster's a more obvious placement. I'm not sure exactly where I would place Curtis Jones on loan.
Yeah, interesting. I want to have a quick look back. Actually, let me read some comments out and see what everybody in the chat's feeling. Shay reckons Brewster and Kelleher will go out on loan. Billy reckons Jones is interested, or there's interest in Jones, by Championship sides. Kane, loan, then transfer. I think Rangers, said Liz. Brian suggests by Morrissey that maybe Brewster should go to Rangers. With Jermaine Defoe up there, and them looking to make that deal permanent, and with obviously that lunatic that they have up front who scores a ridiculous amount of goals but loves an now red card as well, Alfredo Morelos. I'm not sure how much game time he'd get, but it would be interesting to see him nurtured by Stevie G.
He's genuinely like half the age of Jermaine Defoe. That's crazy.
It's crazy, isn't it? What else have we got in the chat then? Bobby's not going anyway. No, that's not what Cash meant. She meant that his age, he's 28 years of age, he won't be around forever, is what Cash was meaning.
Sorry, I want Bobby Firmino to stay for as long as he feels he wants to be there, but like obviously, yeah, he could be there for another 4 or 5 years conceivably, but like, you just don't know. So for me, Brewster would be like a sort of a natural successor, but it's not going to be like next year.
London makes more sense for Brewster to me, wasn't he? He was at Chelsea's academy, wasn't he, when he came through?
He's from London. He's at Chelsea's academy. And he came up to Liverpool because of obviously his dad's a Liverpool fan. So, I think for me, he suits. I think he would genuinely suit a club like Palace. That's the one that keeps screaming out to me, or even maybe like a West Ham type. Something where. I
gotta say 2 names to you that I know looking for strikers. Brighton and Sheffield United both need strikers.
Oh, I'd love him at Sheffield United. I think Chris Wilder and him would have a field day together. Like, can you imagine? Like, it's just Chris Wilder like, don't fucking care. Like, he's so like he just doesn't give a shit. Like he's just
deadly, isn't he? He's class.
He's not like he doesn't indulge any prima donna behaviour. Not that Ryan Brewster is. I don't think he is at all. But I just mean like he wouldn't be costing it at all. And I'd love to see him in that environment. But I actually think because of his pace and because of the way he he's a busy striker, isn't he, Brewster? He's very busy. He's always very I suppose very industrious, and I reckon a manager like Wilder would really like that. And I also think the fans of a club would really like that. I think Brewster's the kind of striker that fans would love. He's not, he's almost like the opposite of like a Daniel Sturridge type in the sense that like Daniel Sturridge wasn't really the most industrious player. He was he was a brilliant finisher, but he wasn't the most chase down lost causes type of player. Whereas I think Brewster is more like that.
I suppose Brewster leads us in nicely to having a quick look back at the Villa game, Cash, and
Yeah.
I don't really. This is going to sound harsh, but I don't care about the score in this game. I was quite impressed with what I seen by those kids. It was very unlucky that Rian picked up that ankle knock and couldn't play, but we seen Harvey Elliott. I thought he put in a good shift. I thought Vela did really well. Creevy and Kelleher, although he conceded 5, I think he did okay as well. I thought it was Sepp Vandenberg, if I'm being really honest about what I thought, he looked a little bit out of his depth in that game, but then again, he's only 17 years of age.
You know what? It's really, really interesting. My brother said to me about a week ago. We were chatting about it, and he said, you know what? This is before the game. He's like, Sepp Vandenberg isn't going to make the grade. He just has this feeling, and it was just it's based on the minimal that he's seen him this season. But he just said that he's the kind of player that they've brought in. They might they'll nurture and they will make a profit on, but it won't be very much. Now I'm not saying at the moment that I think that's the case, but I just thought it was interesting that he had that perspective, and then obviously he had quite a sort of patchy showing on Tuesday night. But I think certainly from the game the other day, if firstly shame on those Villa old men players for actually celebrating the goals. You were basically up against a combined age of about 25 out of all the all the Liverpool players. The average age of the team was 19, youngest Liverpool team in Liverpool history. And the reality is, I think 5-0 or whatever, it wasn't a 5-0 game in terms of quality on the ball. It wasn't a 5-0 game. I think there was definite defensive naivety, and there was almost this element of they looked like children defensively. They hadn't a lot of them hadn't boys hasn't properly filled out. Sepp Vandenberg the same, and that's exactly what you'd expect from young children, basically. And what I would say in terms of what the academy are doing in terms of their development as footballers, you can clearly see the work that's being done. And for me, that's the only real lesson that we should take from the game. It should just be about, are we seeing the benefits of what they're doing at the academy in games such as these, despite the scoreline? Absolutely. And in terms of these games are always interesting for fans to see a player that maybe they have known about for a while or they've heard good things about but they haven't seen in the flesh. And what you would say from that game, I mean, Harvey Elliott will definitely be a first team player at Liverpool, at some point in the future. Maybe 18, 19, whatever. If he stays and bides his time and continues his progression, he will make it. He's got that quality. He oozes that class for someone so young.
He's got that petulance of youth where he gets the ball down and just runs, head down, runs at people, no fear, doesn't give a shit. No, just beautiful to watch. I love it. I loved watching him. And one other shout I want to make, and I'll come back over to you to see if you agree on this. I think within 18 months we're going to see Keanu Hoover, I won't say challenging Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he will be the natural successor or the natural number 2 to Trent Alexander-Arnold. I just thought he was class.
Yeah, he's got it's easy because they're compatriots, but he really has young Virgil van Dijk vibes, not in the sense that he's a centre half, but in that sense that he just oozes calm. And he, for such a young player, much like Virgil van Dijk actually, when he seems to almost play the game in slow motion, no matter the speed of everything else that's happening around him. He's just sort of constantly composed and calm. And for someone so young, that's an amazing trait, and it's not something you can teach. And what I would say as well in terms of him challenging Trent is that they've got a similar physicality. They're both athletes. You can see that Keanu Hoover as well has got that attacking eye and that range of not as good as Trent's, but that potential range of passing. You can definitely see similarities between the two players, and I don't think a lot of Liverpool fans would be unhappy if in 4 or 5 years they were your 2 options at right back. And from a financial perspective, imagine those being your options with very little cost. One was a free, I think obviously Trent came through the academy and has has Hoover come through the academy, or was he bought? Did he buy?
No, Keanu Hoover was brought in. I'm trying to think. I know that Sepp Vandenberg was brought in to by PEC's Vola, I think is how you pronounce that team. Keanu, was he Ajax? Ajax, yes, Ajax. I'm fairly sure he came to the Ajax system.
Yeah, so it'd be like good grounding for one, and secondly, he would have been, a nominal fee. So if you look at it from like the long term planning perspective, it would be really good to see him make it, and I think he will.
Who else have we got? Harvey Elliott we've spoken about. A lot of people in the chat want to know or want your opinion on Harry Wilson and will Harry Wilson make it long term at Liverpool Football Club? I've spoken about my gut feeling on this a few times, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on Harry Wilson.
No, that's my gut feeling.
Same as my own. So
no, you know what? It's only because like it's one of those like really like, and I think it's a good question, but it's such a well trodden debate at this point in the sense that like for me, he is a player that can display moments of class, but he doesn't.
Match of the day player.
He doesn't ooze class in every element of the game. Like he is like you say, he's like a highlights player. He's a match of the day player. Maybe that's doing a disservice to how good he actually is. But to my mind, you need to have any chance at Liverpool. He needs to be running that Bournemouth team this year. He needs to be the best player by an effing mile. Carrying that whole team. And at the moment, he's not doing that, and maybe that's unfair to expect him to, but what I mean is like, he isn't standing out as like head and shoulders the best player on the pitch in every home game or every game that Bournemouth play for Bournemouth. And in my opinion, being a brilliant free kick taker isn't enough. And he is more than that, but in terms of his main attribute, it's not enough. And you do have to ask the question, if he wasn't, reasonably local with a long history of being like a Liverpool fan, and with that connection, would people be like and ahhing over it so much? Because for me, if it was like another player without that, the decision would be a lot easier. But I think everyone, and me included, want to give him every possible chance to make it. But I do believe that if he doesn't now, he's not going to.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, you can't write off any player that young. We got to be clear about that. He's still developing, but I see this thing in our fan base at times. And look, I love our fan base, of course, but there's this clamouring towards Shaqiri as well that, quite frankly, I don't understand. I mean, he does the odd good thing. With Wilson, I watched him playing with Derby last season, and he had some great moments, but he was also drifting in and out of games quite a lot, and he went missing a few times. And speaking to Derby fans about it on Twitter as well, they thought the same thing. And I never understood the whole bring on Shaqiri. What the fuck has Shaqiri really done? I don't understand it. He's had a couple of good games, but sometimes I hear people wanting us to take off Firmino or to take off Mane and bring on Shaqiri, and I'm baffled by it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good comparison because they also like play similar positions on the pitch. And what I would say is that for me, I don't know either of these players. Okay, so like it's hard to like say with conviction. But particularly Harry Wilson, he doesn't, like this year they've been talking about like the Liverpool players being mentality monsters. He doesn't strike me as a mentality monster. Like he strikes me as someone who like is brilliant technically, has a lot of good attributes, but is he the kind of player and character that really is going to elevate us to that next level? No. Shaqiri isn't either, but I think with Shaqiri, Klopp's been like drip feeding him in and out, in and out. I think the signing of Minamino sort of tells us that like Shaqiri's probably going to leave at the end of the season because Klopp wouldn't have declared anything publicly necessarily, but you would argue that the fact that Shaqiri isn't like a key mainstay or even a regular fixture in the first team does kind of indicate that maybe he's seen something behind the scenes that says this player has good quality, but he's really not for us long term, and we need someone with a slightly different mentality. And I think Harry Wilson might fall into that same bracket where actually he's not a mentality monster and he's not going to bring us to that next level. And Jurgen Klopp does know that deep down, but obviously he's not going to like hang him out to dry publicly and just be like, we want rid of this player. It'll all be done very discreetly and respectfully, but ultimately both will be sold, I think.
So I can see the chat's a little bit split. Some people are the same thought process as me, that Shaqiri is a little bit overrated at times. Other people think he's underrated and think he's a really good player. To those people, I suppose I would just ask, what has he done? What has he done at our club so far to look. I want everybody to support our players, so this is a very tricky subject to talk about because I'm fully behind every single one of our players. Shaqiri, Lallana, absolutely included. When they put on that red shirt, they get my back on 100%. But we're looking at building the best squad in the Premier League. We're looking to do it in a clever way. We're bringing in Minamino. We brought in Andy Robertson for a really good fee, and the fee for Shaqiri was an absolute bargain for somebody with his experience
Yeah.
because of that Stoke relegation clause. So the deal made absolute sense to me. It was 100% worth a punt. I just don't think he is worth a squad place at the cost of maybe, let's say, us going and getting a Kai Havertz or a Jadon Sancho, a Timo Werner, somebody else like that. I just think he's a good squad player, a solid professional, seems like a really nice fella as well, never skips a leg day, we can be guaranteed of that one. I just don't, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm blinded by something, maybe I just have some, I don't know, something in the back of my mind that just doesn't agree.
He's one of those players, I think, that like if you were stranded on a desert island, I don't think you'd like bring. You don't think you'd like bring like Shaqiri with you. I feel like he's not that kind of player. He's not like the sort of player where you're like, God, you really like need him to keep the team ticking and so on. It's almost like, I suppose, if a squad place if it was necessary to free up a squad place, he's a player that you could say, in inverted commas, could be sacrificed. He hasn't done much wrong, and just to flip your question before, Craig, when you said what has he done, he would argue, well, what has the manager given me the game time to do? Particularly this season, he hasn't really played. So
he's had some injuries, though, to be fair.
Yeah, he's had a hair transplant as well, which is remarkable.
There's a lot of hair transplants floating around, by the way. Raymond Van Vernabel looks like he's after having one as well. And someone said Conor Ben, the boxer, had a beard transplant. A beard.
I don't even know you could do that.
It's a first, and I've no idea if it's true or if it's not true. I just seen a post on Twitter about it. Rabadan sent in the super chat to say, just want to say the Cash is great on the show. Thank you for that, mate. And I'm sure Cash is delighted to hear your sentiments.
Thank you.
I want to then quickly turn to the Monterrey game before we look ahead to the game against Flamengo on Saturday. It was a damn difficult, tough, grueling, competitive game of football, Cash, and I want to give Monterrey every credit. I mean, people thought we were just going to go and steamroll them. That's never the case. These guys earned the right to be there. They won the CONCACAF Champions League. They won their quarter-final. And they tactically, I think, got it really, really spot on against Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, they disrupted our rhythm really, really well. You seen like particularly like, okay, the fact that Jordan Henderson, who did a very good job at centre half, given it's not his position, but the fact that he was even there kind of disrupted sort of others around him that were very, they're obviously very used to having Virgil van Dijk there. And I think what I would say about that is Monterrey sort of disrupted our rhythm, and there were quite a few players that had really poor games. Like, love Robbo and Milner, I should say, but both were quite poor by their own high standards. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was pretty in and out of it. Shaqiri was poor, Origi was poor, and it was only when we brought on those players, which is what they're there for, but it was only when we brought on like Trent, Firmino, etc., that we really started to acquire some rhythm. And the result was obviously that we won the game in the end, but I don't think anyone was leaving thinking, we weren't sort of borderline fortunate to win the game, through an excellent move and finish, but we were borderline fortunate to win the game. And certainly the players all know they've been in a game, and I think that is a credit to Monterrey, and also the fact that the World Cup, obviously it's in theory not populated by the most brilliant technical teams in the world, but actually every team, and Flamengo will be no different, have earned the right to be there, and they want it. Like, they are very, very hungry. The Club World Cup has a lot of sway, in South America and, obviously in Central America as well. So I actually quite enjoyed it as a game, but we were stodgy for sure.
There's a couple of things on that game I wanted to point out. I thought, and I said it during my watch along probably 20 times, I thought the referee was appalling. I thought he wasn't protecting the players enough. And interestingly, Mohamed Salah has come out and said exactly that he thought that he needed, or the players, not just, when I say the players need protection, I genuinely don't just mean the Liverpool players. I mean every single player on that pitch. I don't think the referee gave them enough protection. He pulled it up for a cramp in one of their players' legs. At one point when we were on the counter attack, there was just so many things. It was very frustrating to me because FIFA made this massive thing of having the Club World Cup, and they're trying to make it into a more glamorous tournament, trying to expand it to have more teams in it, and the standard of officiating needs to match that. And I just thought that particular referee was atrocious.
Yeah, and I think it's like you say, when you're trying to establish this tournament of credibility and you've already put it in a country with known human rights issues where the stadiums have been built by all accounts, by people who've been working in sort of almost, like, let's be honest, slave-like conditions. And there are lots of issues and controversy surrounding FIFA and Qatar and the award of the tournament to them. And I'm not afraid to say that I do think when you do that, when you make a controversial decision, you need to ensure that every element of it is almost perfect, because you want to reduce the risk of recrimination or, sort of people saying, well, you've basically put this tournament in Qatar as a money-making scheme and you haven't even been bothered to referee it properly. How do you expect the players to play in this? They're not fucking, they're not robots, they're not machines. And, I agree with you. I think you can't just want, all the excitement of this multi-team tournament, but not do the basics well, because if you don't do that, you're going to completely lose credibility. And I think FIFA's credibility is already under question anyway.
I want to just pull something out of the chat. Samsy said, I'd have Shaqiri over Origi all day long. I massively disagree with you on that. I mean, I asked you what Shaqiri had done for Liverpool as being here. I can tell you easily what Divock Origi has done. Yeah. 2 goals against Barcelona, late goal against Newcastle, goal against Everton, goal in the Champions League final. Divock Origi's a big game player. Divock Origi has shown up, has matured under pressure in the toughest of environments, and he's still not the finished article, but I think it's very disrespectful to Origi even to have that as a conversation. Personally, just my opinion. And secondly, as Cash touched on there about Qatar and the awarding of the World Cup, there's a really good piece that Gary Neville did for Sky where he visits Qatar and addresses all of these issues. He addresses the awarding of the tournament, he addresses fan safety, he addresses the LGBT situation. He addressed all of that in this piece on Sky, which I highly recommend. It's very rare you get me recommending stuff on Sky on here, but it's a really good piece that I only watched yesterday, and I just thought, wow, yeah, fair play. It was a hard-hitting piece, and he said he only agreed to do the piece when nothing was put out of bounds to him, and it was really good. I highly recommend anyone give it a watch.
You know what, actually, dare I say it, as Jimmy Carragher recently described Gary Neville, as a player, he's a rat, but as a actual pundit, and sort of certainly the way that you can sort of, I actually, dare I say it, quite like him. I think he says a lot of sensible things. Not all, but he's definitely a lot more sensible than that twat of a brother of his.
Yeah, Phil Neville's, I won't even go there. Anyway, we'll push ahead. We have a few minutes left on the stream, ladies and gents. If you have any questions for Cash, put them in the chat and I'll get to them in a couple of seconds. I just want to get your thoughts, Cash, on Gabby goals, the main threat, I suppose, for Flamengo. Gabriel Barbosa scored 2 late goals in the Copa Libertadores final against River Plate in a game. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but it was a game that I thought River Plate deserved to win.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually see the game, but I heard sort of the narrative behind the fact that River Plate deserved to win the game. But I think with Gabby, there's such a threat there, such a goal threat, and he is he? Am I right in thinking he's on loan from Inter Milan?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's he's been pretty inauspicious in Europe, but actually at that level in South America, he's absolutely phenomenal. And I think although River Plate probably deserved to win the game, it just goes to show what a goal threat can do. And I think it'll be because for all of Monterrey's good play, they didn't have a goal threat of that quality. And I think particularly if Virgil van Dijk is ill and he might be still sick, we don't know. For all of those things, Flamengo and him really represent a threat. And like Jurgen Klopp said, they didn't fly 3,000 miles to just show up. You want to win it now that you're there. And hopefully we can counteract this threat.
Competition we've never won. I've said this a few times on the stream as well. If we do manage to beat Flamengo on Saturday and lift that trophy, then we'll be the first English club to concurrently hold the Champions League, the Super Cup and the World Club Cup, and it'll be another trophy for the museum. So it's something I want to win. And somebody said there in the chat, do you think we'll play a weaker team on Saturday so the players might get a rest for Leicester? The honest answer is I don't know, but I would be very surprised if it's not as strong as possible. Yeah, the game against Leicester is huge. I think next Thursday, isn't it, for that one? So the players will have travel back. They'll have a couple of days, very little time to prepare. But as Cash said, I think you don't travel 3,000 miles over there. You are the showpiece team in the tournament as well. I mean, I'm not saying we have a divine right to win it, but we are the biggest club that's there by a long way. I think the attendances have borne that out, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I think that's right as well. Like, you and also with the Carabao Cup, you've nailed your colours to the mast, and you've said this is the competition we're prioritising because look at who they brought to that, and look at who they sent to Villa. So for me, they want to win that, and then they want to come back and beat Leicester in an ideal world. But obviously, what I would say is what a sort of not a blessing in disguise, but an obvious blessing is the fact that Leicester drew the last game against Norwich. The gap is now 10 points. That makes it a different conversation than if the gap had still been 8 points. Not like to the extent that you can just go through the game, but I certainly think psychologically, I think Jurgen Klopp would take a draw
And
because
they're at the Etihad on Saturday
you know,
as well.
pardon.
They're at the Etihad on Saturday at 5:30 as well, Leicester. So someone's dropping points there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, I think arguably it could be Man City, but it'll be interesting to see. Leicester went through, obviously, against Everton in the Carabao Cup, but what I would say is it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back domestically. And the interesting thing is, there's no expectation on Leicester to try and catch us. But instinctively, they want to, and they're managed by David Brent, so like they definitely want to. And, you know, I think it'll be interesting to see the dynamic of how they approach that. But what I would say is let's say, for example, that game is a draw. Then if Liverpool were then to beat Leicester, they would go 12 points clear of them. And what would it be, like 16 clear of City or something ridiculous? So I think we can sit pretty, try and put it all into the Club World Cup, win that, come back, and be in a position where a draw wouldn't be the worst result in the world because now we have a lead. I'm not saying, sacrifice points here, there, and everywhere, but you've got a good lead, controlled management, know when you can afford to maybe like drop points and know when you've got to like go out and try and really, 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 really win the game. So far, during this ridiculous December run, the players and the management have acquitted themselves absolutely brilliantly, and that just goes to show the degree of planning that goes into every single element of Liverpool Football Club, and I love that.
Rabadan said if we lose the Club World Club final, he won't lose any sleep over it. If we win, he'll rub his United supporting friends' nose in it. As always, mate, thank you for the super chat. Question for you, Cash. Reactor Sincere says, Cash, where do you think Minamino fits in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3? Which system do you think would suit him better from what you've seen?
That's a good question, actually. Was the second system a 4-3-3?
Yeah, it's a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3.
I think I would personally play him in a 4-2-3-1. Well, no, actually, who would you play through the middle? That's really, really.
You're probably looking at Salah through the middle in that system.
Yeah, definitely seeing you would play maybe like 4-2-3-1. You would play him alongside Sadio Mane and Firmino, but then there's no real protection there unless it depends on the game. That's a really, really boring answer, but it depends on who you're playing. I think at home, I would love to see him in a 4-2-3-1 potentially, but maybe in away games it'd be more difficult. You'd have to play him in a 4-3-3 with, a defensive midfielder like a Fabinho type, and then two midfielders alongside to protect. But I think the whole idea with any player that Klopp buys is that they can be, versatile in respective formation, and if they're not versatile by the time they arrive, they will be by the time that they are bedded into the team. So, to be honest, I think versatility will be key, and depending on the game and the opposition, I think he could do well in both.
And what's your prediction for the Club World Cup final on Saturday?
I think we'll win, but I don't think we'll get a clean sheet. So I think it could be a similar scoreline to the other day. I think I'm going to go 2-1.
Nice. I think, yeah, something similar. I think I'd probably like to see the starting 11 before I give my actual prediction. So I'm going to sit in the fence a little bit. Before I let you go, I just wanted, myself and Brian were talking earlier on the phone, and we got around to talking about somebody, and I thought, I must bring this up with Cash, and that's the resurgence of Naby Keita. And we're starting to finally see what this gentleman is capable of. 3 goals in his last few games, assist as well, playing really well. I just want to get your thoughts on Naby Keita.
Yeah, I mean, he's just lovely, isn't he? He's just lovely to watch. He's one of those players that when he's like, he's clearly fit now and he's in his sort of full pelt, and he's one of those players that just genuinely gives you joy. Like, the low center of gravity, the ability to like play like sort of incisive clinical passes, the ability to run in behind, the chemistry that's clear with Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane particularly. It's like he is a player that like he's wearing the number 8 shirt for a reason, and I think comparisons of that nature are very very early, but seeing him in his full pump and seeing him really just giving us everything that we thought we were getting and more, for me, it's so exciting. But the reservation lies in the fact that we need to keep him fit. There does seem to be like a slight susceptibility to niggly injuries, but if we can eradicate that, we've got the player that we were buying, and like what a player he is.
He is absolutely class. A couple of people in the chat are just wondering about Minamino's position. So from what I've researched and the little bit I've done, and a bit I've seen on Sky as well earlier on, and mainly an attacking midfielder can play on both sides. This season for Salzburg has played on the right hand side predominantly. I think he started one game on the left hand side, just because Minamino is a left winger. Somebody put in the chat, which I don't believe is actually correct. I think his preferred or his better side seems to be the right hand side. But for the national team, Cash, I think 22 games, 11 goals. We're getting versatility again, which is a word we keep coming back to when we talk about Jurgen Klopp type players. Milner, Henderson, Firmino, Salah, Mane. I mean, the list goes on. Oxlade-Chamberlain. That's what Jurgen Klopp likes. He likes people that can adapt to different games, that can adapt to different systems. And this kid, I say kid, he's 24, seems to be somebody of a Jurgen Klopp mould.
Well, absolutely, and like for me, he's. The thing I like about Jurgen Klopp is that he's not discreet in what he prefers. Like he is, ever since he came in, he's been so clear in what he likes. So Christian Benteke sold pretty much instantaneously because he wasn't versatile enough. He has a type of player he likes, and he doesn't, like this has often been said and bandied about. He doesn't buy players for players' caliber individually. He buys them to fit the system. And Minamino was like a brilliant example of that. And for me, it's like for Jurgen Klopp actually, I think beyond sort of versatility and flexibility, he really values like game intelligence, intelligent players. And I think this is what you're going to get from Minamino in abundance. And I can see him, obviously I'm not sure. I think his English is he speaks English, but it's not like amazing or whatever. And maybe it'll take him a little while to get up to speed with everyone in terms of the chemistry. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him be embedded in like in a Andy Robertson, Fabinho type sense, because at the moment we've got the personnel and we don't need to throw him in, and that's almost like the best position to bring a player into a club in. No pressure, just get your bearings, because once he does, he's got the profile to be a brilliant signing.
I couldn't agree more. Ladies and gents, I just want to let you guys know that this will be the last stream before the Club World Cup final on Saturday. The kickoff for that game is 5:30 p.m. UK time. We'll be starting our watch-along at 5 o'clock. As always, we don't schedule our watch-alongs, we just go live. So please make sure that you've subscribed, you've got notifications turned on, and fingers crossed then when we go live, you'll get that little ping on your phone or that little email or whatever it is, whatever way you've got your notifications set up. Cash, thank you so much, mate, for coming on. How are you getting on in London? I know people want to know. If I don't ask you live on stream, I'm sure I'm going to get asked on the stream, so I might as well ask you straight out. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. Like, tomorrow's like our last sort of work day before Christmas. I'm going back home for a few days, but like, actually, yeah, it's been sort of like steadily getting better. Like, I'm sort of like settled in my work environment now. I'm enjoying it. It's busy, but like, but yeah, no, I'm good actually. I'm starting to like, it's like anything. You go into a new environment, and I think like sometimes people aren't like super friendly straight away, but now I've gotten more friendly with my colleagues and so on, and it's become like a nicer environment. So I'm enjoying it. Thank you for asking.
When you say home, you go back to Derry?
Go back to Derry, yeah.
I was wondering, his home Liverpool or his home Derry? I didn't know which one you were going with.
Where I was born and raised is Derry, but my ceremonial and spiritual home is Liverpool, of course.
I'm just confirming something here. Yes, it's definitely a 5:30 kickoff, Callum, mate. I knew I was right. Yes, it's a 5:30 kickoff because the third four place playoff is on beforehand. So yeah, the coverage might start on BBC maybe at 5:15. I think that might be what you're talking about, Callum.
Is it on at the same time as the club as the City Leicester game?
It is, unfortunately, yes. So I suppose we're going to be doing a watch along of that and getting reaction to what's going on in that game as well.
Oh, that'd be nice to like watch us win another trophy and for City to like lose another trophy in the same game. That'd be nice.
What result do you want in that game, actually?
I actually think, despite their real sort of fall away, probably I actually still think City are a bigger threat than Leicester. So arguably, I'd like Leicester to win, but I think the realistic thing that I think I can hope for is a draw.
Yeah, I'd take a draw as well, to be honest. Both teams dropping points works for me. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much to you all, as always, for your time. If I don't see you on Saturday and I don't speak to any of you before Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas. I'm sure I'll see most of you before then. And Cash, to you as well. Have a wonderful Christmas, mate, if I don't speak to you before then. And enjoy being back in Derry and the cold weather that will come with it. Obviously, coming back to Ireland. I think it's a little bit warmer in London than it is over here, I believe.
A little bit, but it's mostly just the pollution, Craig. Makes it a bit warmer.
Well, I won't comment on that. I'll leave that to you. You're living there, not me. I live down in the countryside. It's nice and clean air. It smells of mushroom shit down here. That's what I will say. There's a mushroom farm near me, and sometimes when they're spraying the fertilizer, it stinks.
It's
Really does. I'm not going to lie.
It's not the worst problem to have.
True, it's a first world problem. It definitely is. Look, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Cash. I will chat to you all on Saturday for the watch along of the game. Don't forget to subscribe. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week and up the motherfucking Reds.